Hey, you guys. Hope y'all are having a great night so far. I'm trying to test out and make sure that my slideshow will be able to be seen. So since I'm a couple of minutes early, I'm going to check it on my phone so that I can see exactly what it looks like. I don't think you guys can see me. I think that you can just see the slides, which is important. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think we are good to go. Well, welcome to our Facebook Live learning group. This is actually our last topic, I should say, in this learning series for June. We have covered outdoor tips, we've covered cooking with essential oils, and we've covered skincare. So if you have missed any of that, then please go back and take a look at those. They are saved in this group, so you can easily go back and watch those at your convenience. But I'm going to go ahead and dive right in, and I'll just kind of flip through my slides and talk about natural first aid and how we can have some things on hand that will help us to be able to treat most anything that comes up in a very easy and simple way and non-toxic way, which is super important. All right. Okay, so a couple of different oils that have different properties in them that we want to use for first aid. First of all, antibacterial. That's obviously extremely important when we get things like cuts and scrapes. Cedarwood, melaleuca, and oregano all have antibacterial properties, so really, really important. I don't pronounce this very well. Catharol. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that right, but anyway, it basically means anti-mucus producing, so to speak. Helps to break up and get rid of mucus. Frankincense and spearmint. Spearmint is one that you may not think about, and maybe you have some spearmint and you want some other uses for it. This would be a good use for it. Antiseptic, keeping things like cuts and scrapes and wounds really clean to prevent any bacteria from forming. Things like lavender, lemon, oregano, those are great. And then antiviral, clove, lime, melaleuca, and oregano. We probably think of melaleuca as the #1 antiviral, but these others also have antiviral properties. Now all of these properties really explains why we use these particular oils, as you'll see as I go through the slides. Okay, a few other ones. Regenerative just means that it helps to restore the skin and heal the skin. We know that frankincense is amazing for the skin, and so is lavender, but cypress might be one that you have not thought about. Cypress is also great. Sedative or relaxing, frankincense. Frankincense is extremely grounding for the emotions. And then, of course, we know that lavender is super calming. Now, a couple that are great for the stomach, you probably know that ginger and peppermint are great, but basil is also really good for any GI upset, any nausea, things like that. So another kind of great first aid to have on hand. Hey, Jenny, glad you could join. Okay, helichrysum, you guys, a lot of people don't know about helichrysum, or it isn't an oil that they have invested in yet. And I say invested in because it is a little bit pricier, but it is worth it because a little bit, we know with these oils, a little bit goes a long way, right? And it is so great for so many things, especially things with the skin. So helichrysum, I love to use in addition to lavender and frankincense for burns. It works great. But it also has anticoagulant properties, which means that it stops bleeding. So I've not done this myself, but I've heard of people having open cuts, like pretty big cuts, and putting drops of helichrysum right into the cut to stop the bleeding, and it works amazingly well from what I've told. I have not experienced that firsthand, thank the Lord, but that's just FYI if you came across a need for that. Bruising, it does work really well for bruises, any tissue injury, cuts, scars, that type of thing, it's really great for. Tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears. That's one that often people will ask me, well, what can I use for this? Helichrysum would be your go-to. That was just kind of a FYI, not that that's necessarily a first aid issue. All right, clove. You guys, clove is a major powerhouse. So clove is very antiviral, has tons of antioxidants in it, but clove was actually historically used for skin infections. So clove is really great for skin issues. Now clove is a little bit of a warmer or hot oil, so you would always want to make sure that you dilute it, but you can actually remove splinters with clove. So you apply clove to the splinter and then apply adhesive tape and then leave that there, for a while. I would say you would leave it there for probably at least 30 minutes to an hour and then remove it. And the clove helps the splinter to kind of work its way out. And then after that, you apply lavender just for the soothing properties of the lavender. So that's it. I hate the splinter. It's terrible when you get splinters, right? Speaking of lavender, we know that lavender is good for so many things, but especially the skin. Lavender is extremely soothing. I love to use lavender for things like bug bites, any kind of itching, cuts, scrapes, burns especially. I burn myself in the kitchen more times than I'd like to, let's just say that, and so it works so well. Lavender, you may not know this about lavender, but it has anticoagulant properties as well. So it can stop bleeding. It's obviously very soothing and relaxing, and often when we have first aid situations, it creates a lot of anxiety, right? We have a lot of, hey Brenda, we have tend to get a lot of anxiety. So the slide here says soothing to a child because we think of first aid with children, but it doesn't just apply to kids, right? Soothing for any type and calming for any type of anxious feelings. It also reduces itching. Lavender has anti-inflammatory properties and also has antihistamine properties. The reason that we get the reaction from a bug bite is because of the histamine production in our body. So that's kind of a normal response. And so the lavender having antihistamine properties really helps with things like that. So lavender is like one that I think everyone should have on hand, and I love to keep it in a roller bottle because it's already pre-diluted. doTERRA actually sells it that way, and it's so nice to just pull out of your purse, or if you're at home, just grab it and put it on a burn or a bite or a cut or a scrape, anything like that. Okay, what about if you've been out in the heat too long and you've really just gotten overheated? Peppermint is extremely cooling and is great at just bringing the body temperature down. So one thing that's nice to do is apply 2 to 3 drops of peppermint. I would dilute my 2 to 3 drops of peppermint along the neck, spine, and feet. So basically just run it along the spine, and then you can also put it on the bottom of the feet. Now, in the summer months, when it's really hot outside, I like to keep peppermint in a spray bottle. So keeping peppermint with just water in a spray bottle is really nice when you're outside and you're feeling extremely hot. Just spray it on the back of your neck, and it really helps to cool the body temperature down. Now, of course, you need to stay extremely hydrated to prevent heat exhaustion, and drinking your lemon in your water is not only going to promote hydration, but you're also going to get that detox benefit from the lemon. So I love to do that as well. Okay, what about when you have wounds and you want to clean them? So cleaning wounds, you can use things like On Guard and lavender. So On Guard is going to have those antibacterial, antiviral properties. Now you would want to dilute this, of course. And then lavender is going to have those soothing properties. So you can cleanse the wound with that. And then Correct X, if you do not have Correct X, to me, this is a must, especially for first aid. Correct X is basically like a Neosporin, okay? It's basically like a, almost like a salve. It comes in a tube just like, you know, a Neosporin or antibacterial ointment would. And I use it just like I would use an ointment like that. For anything that I would consider using an antibacterial ointment on, I would use Correct X in place of that. It works really, really well. It's also great for chapped lips, by the way. You can just apply it right to your lips. Okay, burns. I mentioned lavender is one of my favorites for burns. That's always my go-to. Helichrysum is also great, and helichrysum will actually help prevent the burns from blistering. Lavender and peppermint can be used together. You would want to, again, dilute these, but the peppermint is extremely cooling. So think about a burn and, you know, it being kind of cooling, and then the lavender is extremely soothing. So those are really good options to use. Yeah, Brenda, you've had a little experience with burns lately, haven't you? Oh, those are terrible, I know. Okay, now let's talk about blistering from those, from either, now this is on someone's pinky, but pinky toe, it looks like. Blistering from like maybe one of your shoes, wearing it too tight. Using things like lavender and melaleuca together can really help prevent the blistering from happening, from occurring. So if you start to feel like, you know, your shoe's rubbing you, you can try to go ahead and put some lavender and melaleuca on the area. And if you do get a blister that is fluid filled like this one, you also can apply the lavender and melaleuca to help that go down easier, so to speak. Frankincense is another good one on here. Let's see. Brenda says, so what if the skins come off? Still use the oils? Yes, still use the oils. Just dilute them, you know, pretty heavily because you don't want it to burn the fresh skin under there. But that's really where the Correct X, I think, really comes in handy, because it's you know, it's more of like kind of like a salve, like I said. So I would definitely consider getting some of that and having that on hand. But yes, you can use the oils, just dilute them more heavily. That's a good question. Okay, we mentioned a little bit about bleeding. So helichrysum is excellent. And remember I said lavender actually has anticoagulant properties. I love to give you guys different ideas because you may not have all of these oils on hand, right? Maybe you don't have helichrysum or geranium, but you have lavender, so you can try lavender. Most people have lavender. It's because it's a basic, really all-purpose oil. And geranium also has anticoagulant properties, so that would be another one that you could use just directly on the wound if you were concerned about bleeding and the bleeding stopping. Gosh, bee stings, oh my gosh. They hurt so bad, right? This goes for bee stings, wasps, yellow jackets, anything like that. Basil, my go-to typically, let me say this first, my go-to is usually Purify. It's a blend of several oils that is really detoxifying and helps with the symptoms of, the stinging and the burning, but all of these are a good option. So maybe you don't have Purify. I mean, you have lavender probably, but using your basil, your Roman chamomile, or your Purify first really helps with the toxic effect of, of the bee sting, basically, or the wasp or whatever. And then the lavender, again, is very soothing to put that on afterwards. So, like I said, Purify would probably be my go-to, but maybe you just have basil or Roman chamomile and you could totally use those. Victoria said, use this on my dog's injured paw the other day. I did lemon, helichrysum, and lavender to stop the bleeding. Oh, awesome. Now, I have not heard of using lemon for that. That's great to know. Did it work pretty well, Victoria? I'm going to keep going. This is a little bit of a delay sometimes, so I'm sure she'll respond. Okay, this time of year, bugs everywhere, right? Everybody wants a good insect repellent. Specifically for mosquitoes, TerraShield is amazing, and you know that you can buy TerraShield in a 15 ml bottle and then make your own bug spray with whatever combination of oils you choose. And then you can also buy, if you didn't want to do that, you could also just buy the TerraShield. Oh, she said I didn't either, but the book told me. Awesome. That's why I love reference books. Totally. So TerraShield does come already pre-made in a spray bottle for those of you who just want the convenience of not having to make it. But if you wanted to make your own, this is a good little combination. TerraShield, using more TerraShield than the other oils, so you're going to go heavy on your TerraShield. Lavender and patchouli, and this would be I would use this in a 2-ounce spray bottle, and then equal parts witch hazel and fractionated coconut oil. Now that's one thing that I always do, even if I choose different oils, and I'm going to give you some more options in just a minute, but I always add fractionated coconut oil, because when you're spraying this on your skin, it really just first of all, it absorbs better. Second of all, it gives you a chance to kind of moisturize your skin a little bit when you're putting on your insect repellent. So that's one of the reasons that I love that. But lavender and patchouli are great to add to that TerraShield. And I love patchouli. It just smells amazing. Oh, good. Victoria said, yes, it worked well. Awesome. Okay, so here are some more of your kind of bug repelling oils. Now, if you choose, based on what oils you have or even what scent you like, you could choose 3 of these oils. 10 drops of each, and this is fractionated coconut oil. Now, I would use this with the fractionated coconut oil and the witch hazel, just like I said on the previous slide. But some of those oils that would be good are lavender, arbor vitae. That's one that I really love because it's really woodsy and earthy smelling. Eucalyptus, clove, geranium, rosemary, cedarwood, cypress, lemongrass. Lemongrass is another good one. Melaleuca and peppermint. Peppermint is good repellent against ticks also. So maybe you don't have all of these oils and you have 3 or 4. Choose 3 and make your own. Now another tip for you that I love to do, if I'm sitting out on my porch, I'll just take a combination of 2 or 3 of these oils and take my diffuser out there and diffuse while I'm outside. And that really helps to keep the bugs away as well. Sometimes we don't think about taking our diffusers outside, but it does. It's really helpful. Okay, poison oak or poison ivy, either one. Some oils that would be good for that. Obviously lavender, it's great for pretty much everything. Purify, we talked about, Purify kind of taking removing the toxin, so to speak. But Elevation, surprisingly, Elevation, because it has lavender in it, and it also has Melissa, which has very anti-inflammatory properties. Elevation would be another great choice to use. And maybe you have Elevation and you don't even have lavender or Purify. So these are just giving you options. Now, Zendocrine, using your Zendocrine complex and Zendocrine soft gel, Zendocrine is the detoxifying complex, okay? So it is really going to help to remove the toxins and chemicals, or not chemicals, but really toxins that you have gotten exposed to with the poison oak or poison ivy, and help your system rid itself of that quicker so that you heal quicker. So that's another, I love to have Zendocrine on hand, and I just take them periodically when I feel like I need kind of a little bit of a detox and cleansing. Sometimes I'll take them for a couple of weeks at a time. Okay, this is another one that I love to have on hand, the Bump and Bruise Spray. So mixing in a spray bottle, this would be typically a 4-ounce spray bottle, a larger one, because you're looking at 30 drops of geranium, 15 of lavender, 10 of cypress, 5 of frankincense, and 5 of helichrysum. Now, again, if you didn't have all of these oils, then you could just use the ones that you have. But this is really good for any bumps and bruises. So I love to have this on hand because, especially if you have kids, even if you don't, I get bumps and bruises all the time, but especially for kids, it's really great to have on hand. The Owie spray. This reminds me, do you guys remember, oops, sorry about that. I got happy with the clicker. Do you guys remember the stuff? I remember my mom used to spray it on any of our cuts and scrapes called Bactine. And it stung so bad when she would spray it on there. This would be like an alternative to that. So keeping in your spray bottle, this doesn't have measurements on here, but just to give you an example, a 2-ounce spray bottle, I would use 10 to 15 drops of each: lavender, frankincense, melaleuca. And then I would also dilute with either, I would use fractionated coconut oil, and I'll also dilute with either witch hazel or just plain water would be totally fine. I wouldn't use all fractionated coconut oil. Now, your other option for this is to just keep this, instead of a spray, keep it in a roller bottle. So 10 ml roller bottle, I would use 10 drops of lavender, 10 drops of frankincense, 10 drops of melaleuca, and then top it with fractionated coconut oil. And that might even be a better way for you to utilize it, like keeping it in your purse, and just use it that way and roll it right on the area. You know, it's usually a cut or a scrape. This could be used for burns as well. So kind of more of an all-purpose. Okay, let's say you have a sprain. Let's say you sprain your ankle. What oils and what mixture could you use for a sprain? So apple cider vinegar is great. I would use about a half a cup of apple cider vinegar, about a tablespoon of sea salt, or you could totally use Epsom salt. We know that that's really great for sprains. Deep blue, marjoram, and lemongrass. Those are amazing for healing of joints and ligaments. And putting that all into a small bowl, I would add some water to this because you're probably going to need a little bit of water to submerge, especially if it's like an ankle or a wrist. You really want that area more submerged in this mixture, and just soak it. Soak it for about 30 minutes, and that's really going to help. Now, you could totally do this just in a bath. You know, if let's say it was maybe your knee and you sprained your knee, or this would even work for something like some back pain. I love to use apple cider vinegar, Epsom salt, and usually I throw in some baking soda because that's more of a helps with detox. But it's really your oils here too that you're looking at. Your deep blue, your marjoram, and your lemongrass are so great for anything joint, ligament related. Okay, now we're going to talk about sunscreen. That's one that people always ask about. How can I make a homemade sunscreen? Zinc oxide really helps to absorb ultraviolet rays from the sun and protect the skin from sunburn. So it's really best to probably invest in, and it's not that expensive, but you can just buy it online, some zinc oxide if you really want to make your own sunscreen. So here is one recipe. Oops. Sorry about that, guys. Here's one recipe that you could use that has olive oil, coconut oil. The beeswax is what is going to help to kind of firm everything up a little bit, and so is the shea butter, the zinc oxide, and vitamin E. And then helichrysum actually has some, what am I trying to say? SPF, sorry, totally escaped my mind, actually has SPF in it. So, and so does coconut oil. So that would be another, oil that would be really good to use in your sunscreen. Now, with the beeswax and the shea butter, you're going to have to melt this mixture down. So what you would do is you would heat this on the stovetop. I usually, when I make sunscreens, I have just a pot with a little bit of water boiling, and then I put my ingredients into a mason jar and sit it in the boiling water. So I would put the olive oil, the coconut oil, the beeswax, and the shea butter in until that all melted, you know, and you mixed it together. You stirred it, and it's completely melted. And then you would add your vitamin E, your zinc oxide, and your helichrysum after you remove it from the heat. And you just stir it to combine. And then once it cools down, it firms up. So it's a little bit of a firmer, you know, mixture once it cools down. So that's just kind of one example. Now, I really love this next one, though. The Time Saver. Okay, this is not waterproof, and you would have to apply it every 2 hours, and it has about a 20 SPF. But doTERRA's hand and body lotion that comes in the blue tube, it's unscented. It's amazing. That's what I use, you know, just for moisturizing my skin every day, because you can add whatever oil you want to it, so you can smell whatever way you want to smell. But if you're using it for sunscreen, you take 1 tube of that lotion, you add 12 drops of helichrysum and 2 tablespoons of zinc oxide, and you just made a super quick and easy sunscreen with a 20 SPF. So that's pretty cool. You might want to try that out. Now, let's say you go out in the sun and you don't use enough sunscreen, or you stay out there all day and now you're sunburned. So what can we do for the sunburn? Lavender, of course, is amazing. Now, I love to use aloe vera gel also. You can buy that right off of the internet. In fact, if you are local to Warner Robins, Kathleen, I'm having a make and take this Friday at 5:30, and we're going to make a sunburn soother with aloe vera gel, lavender, and I like to add peppermint and frankincense to mine, just because it's more cooling, and the frankincense is also very healing to the skin. This one's good to keep in the refrigerator, but if you didn't have frankincense or peppermint, you could totally just use lavender. But just spraying it on the skin is very soothing, you know, from if you've been out in the sun and gotten a sunburn. And that's it, you guys. These are my resources. The Essential Life book, which most people know about. It's an amazing resource. I'm going to stop sharing here.